Hello and welcome to Career Talk. I'm Lee Hopwood, the CEO at the CCMA, and I'm host of this live show where I chat with some of our amazing contact centre professionals to find out about their career journeys so far in this industry. And we do that so that we can inspire those of you that work in the industry already, and maybe those that are looking for a hugely rewarding career that happens to be in the contact centre. Because we know, for those of us that are in the contact centre, that, oh my goodness, not only is it great fun working in this industry, but it's really worthwhile, purposeful, and really fulfilling. And today, joining me is Helen Wilson, the Chief Operating Officer at Atom Bank. And for someone that did a degree in geography, I can't wait to hear more about Helen's career to date and what got her into the industry and how she got into being Chief Operating Officer at Atom Bank. So, hello, Helen.
Hi, Lee. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining me. Now, a degree in geography. Why geography? And I have to ask, has it been useful in your career in the contact centre industry?
Yeah, so I never intended out to do geography originally. So I always aspired to be a lawyer and had a place to do law at university, but didn't get the grades that I needed. So on results day for A levels, it was there was lots of tears, but actually it was quite a turning point for me. So after that, I still was sort of determined to do it. So I got, actually through a waitressing job I met a solicitor who offered me a job to work at a solicitor's practice. So I worked there, did an extra A level, so I could reapply again. But actually working in a solicitor's office, I quickly realised it wasn't for me. So I then thought, well, what is it I really enjoyed? And actually, I really enjoyed geography as a subject. So I then applied to Newcastle University to do geography, got my extra A level, got an A in it. I was so determined to go. I was the first person in our family to get to university. So really proud moment for me. And I just loved it. I love the subject. I love the breadth of it. I love doing, broad range of things. And while I suppose geography is not directly relevant in terms of the career I've had, the breadth of it and the sort of multidisciplinary approach of being in an operations environment is probably very, very similar. But what it did do is give me that opportunity to explore sort of graduate trainee opportunities.
Oh, interesting. So when you finish then in your degree, and do you know what? I know that there'll be people that will say, I haven't got the right experiences, the right qualifications, the right this, that, and the other to get into contact centres. And actually, I'm not sure that it really matters a great deal about what you've got so far. Getting into work in a contact centre, it's actually more about your attitude to life and helping people and wanting to work with customers, and it's a slightly different angle, a different play. But so you finished your degree, then what happened? So being a lawyer was out the window. Where did you go next?
So, yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of skill sets for the contact centre industry. It is very much about attitude, your view of the customer and really, really wanting to help people. So, to be honest, when I finished my degree, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, had no real direction other than I wanted to go into somewhere where I could continually learn, develop, and, add some value, I think were the key things I was looking for. And I really just fell upon the graduate traineeship at Northern Rock. which a lot of people remember, probably not for all the right reasons, I have to say, but it was a fantastic place to work. So went on the graduate trainee programme and was there for 18 years and did so many different things. But my first experience of being in the contact centre was when there was a mortgage rate change. And it was a really small mortgage contact centre, because we were a very small building society at the time. I think it was only about 6 people on the phone line. So whenever there was something big that happened, they just pulled everybody in that they possibly could to help. And I had no idea what I was doing. I really didn't. I didn't know what I was doing with the systems. I didn't know what I was talking about. So that was a real baptism of fire. But what I did really enjoy is when I actually did manage to find what I was supposed to say and give the right answers, and the customers were really grateful. That really sparked something in me in terms of that being able to help people and really make a difference to people as well. So, but I really enjoyed a really varied career and different challenges while I was at Northern Rock.
And that feeling, and thankfully that's not what it's like when you join a contact centre these days. You know, you get great onboarding experiences. It's fantastic. But you must remember how you felt. They always say it's not necessarily the outcome; it's how people feel is what makes all the difference. You must have remembered how it felt being thrown into that situation, and I'm guessing that you probably deployed different things for your people around you as you've gone through your career, so that people don't feel that again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did feel an utter sense of panic, and I do apologise for any customers that I might have dealt with at the time, because, you know, it was just a, you know, just thrown on and just get on with it type experience. So yeah, I've really taken that in terms of, you know, particularly as we've built up Atom Bank from scratch, and I've built up the contact centre, and, you know, we've really invested in terms of training our agents, giving them the experience, but also you know, back to the point before in terms of, you know, not necessarily the knowledge, but giving them tools in terms of being able to deal with different situations with customers and customers' emotions, so that they are more understanding of the customer's situation within those conversations, not just a transactional answer to a particular query, but also making sure that they've got support as well ongoing throughout their experience as well.
And how did you get that first job in the contact centre? Was that you saw it on a posted in somewhere in a job board?
So it was just because I was a graduate trainee at the time. So I'd gone on this graduate trainee scheme and very much focused in the operational areas of the business. And you got to drop into lots of different areas. So really good all-round experience. But just because I was a graduate trainee and you just should be able to get on and do it, it was just a case of being dropped in there to get on with it and help as and when needed. But what it does is it you know, it builds resilience. It gives you you know, skills, because then you have to, you know, engage with all the people around you and you know, look to them to get some support and help, and you quickly pick up the knowledge that you need to know to be able to do that role.
So once you'd learned how to swim in that role, when did the opportunity for you to progress at Northern Rock start to really kick in?
So I was really fortunate, I suppose, in terms of getting that variety of different roles, and being sort of you can apply for roles. So I just continually looked for what the next opportunity was and just went for it. And there was an occasion where again, because you were a trainee, you were sometimes put in different positions, and So at the time I was in a corporate planning role, so not in a sort of operational contact center role. And it was quite a strategic role and I was enjoying it. And then there was a problem which needed an operational team to be pulled together. And when I was asked to go, I was like, well, I don't want to go. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm progressing well. And it was like, no, you should be going. You should be doing this. And so I reluctantly went and I had to travel to another site that was further away. And I was really like, not really up for this. But actually, it was one of the best things that happened to me. And I suppose one of my key insights to everybody is if you get an opportunity, grab it with both hands because you just don't know what it will lead to. But it was looking after operational teams, and I just loved the fact that I could be around people, help people, put processes in place, get people trained up to do what they needed to do. We had a contact center there to be able to support customers, and it was just so exciting. And I used to be the first one there every morning and organize what was going to go on for the day. And out of that, I was sort of plucked out of there to say, this is someone that actually it is very operational and
very organized.
Very organized, likes developing people. So let's develop that. And that was really, my focus then became very much in terms of that operational career pathway, and have always been in operational roles, whether that's back office or contact center ever since.
No, absolutely, and do you know what? You're so right. If there's an opportunity there, grab it. I've spoken to contact center leaders previously who have taken roles that maybe haven't ended up being something that they've really enjoyed, but they recognise the value of trying it, realising now what they didn't like,
Yes.
and moving on. And you're fortunate enough that actually you were pushed in a direction that actually really worked for you. But your time at Northern Rock wasn't always sweetness and light. It, as you said at the top of the conversation, not everybody remembers Northern Rock for the great place that it was. Tell us about what led to the ending of Northern Rock and the role that you played in that.
Yeah, so I was looking after the savings operation at the time of the crisis and the run on the bank. And but while it was awful on the one hand, I do look back at it in some ways with an element of fondness. It was a bit of a wartime effort. The teams were so engaged. We had people that were on holiday that were ringing up to come in and help. And it was organized chaos. So I was there working, literally every hour of the day, every single day, getting home very, late at night and leaving at the crack of dawn in the morning. But there was a real togetherness. And that's what I remember as the positive, that we had to support our customers, we had to provide them with what they needed, we had to provide them with reassurance or their money back, and it was a challenging time, both personally and emotionally and from a business point of view. And there was such uncertainty for everybody that worked there. But the overriding, sense, and back to the, it's the feelings that you remember, was that sense of togetherness and purpose, and we've got a job to do, and we're going to see it through, which is what we did. And
I guess when you're going through those kind of environments, that's when you realise just how important and how much of a family it is working in the contact centre.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the usual things, lots of pizzas being delivered and eaten together, which hasn't changed over all these years, but it is that supporting one another and recognizing how challenging it was and how difficult it was. But it just such an important role that the contact centre has, particularly in those sort of situations where it's a real crisis mode, because that's the interface with the customer. So yeah, really challenging, but really strong feelings of positive emotion at the same time.
And you had to deal with some fairly tough process changes. I believe that you had to make people redundant as well as making yourself redundant.
Yeah.
Talk us through what that was like and what that felt like.
Yeah, so this was a little while after the run, but the business had to restructure. We had to cut costs and make ourselves more attractive to being a viable proposition going forward. So they were combining the two big operational areas between savings and mortgages. So I was made redundant and I had to make all my team redundant. Now, the team that was in savings had worked together for such a long time. Northern Rock was very much an organisation that was a job for life. Everybody knew each other. Whole families worked there together. And nobody had anticipated that there would be an end to it. So to make that team redundant, and I remember the day, and I did it all in one day, spoke to every single member of the team, and it is absolutely soul destroying to have to do that to people. But again, when that happens, and I'm sure there's many people listening that it will have happened to or might happen to in the future, what I would say is, again, don't look at it as a personal situation. This is about a business. It's about the role. It's not about the individual. And what you can take away from it and rethink or look at new opportunities, which you wouldn't have got otherwise. So if that hadn't have happened, I would probably have still been at Northern Rock now, if I'm quite honest. But because I was forced into that position, I did actually stay on for an extra year and did a black belt training and qualification. And then I went on to do some consultancy work and then went to Atom, which I would never have done otherwise. So actually it was, in hindsight, it was one of the best things that could have happened to me. But at the time, it never quite feels like that. But, if anyone's ever in that position, don't be too hard on yourself and look at it as an opportunity to go and do something different, because there's so many opportunities out there to do that.
And that's really good advice. So really good advice. One door closes, another one opens, and it's really looking at what that opening door is. And like you say, there's so much opportunity in our industry, so much opportunity. Yeah. That job is out there. But oh my goodness, what an opportunity that landed your way. And I'm sure you had to look for it a little bit. Tell us how it came about that you were able to join Atom Bank at the point that, it was a startup, it was a brand new bank, challenger bank. How did that opportunity come about?
So, there are sayings, isn't there? And I often think things happen for a reason, and sort of the right time, right place, a bit of luck along the way. So at the time, I'd been doing some contracting work with Deloitte. I was based down in London for a year and then was in Warrington. And unfortunately, my daughter became quite unwell during that time. And it was awful being away from her and being away from home. So my key driver was I had to get back to the northeast of England where my family was. So I was looking for all sorts of roles, and through a conversation actually with somebody that I knew who was actually an angel investor in Atom, they said, "Oh, have you heard about this Atom Bank? And I know one of the founders. I'll put your name over to them." And maybe they'll get in touch. And they did. And actually, I ended up having an interview with the Cumberland Building Society and Atom Bank on the same day. And so I was all dressed in my corporate, suited and booted, where I had an interview at the Cumberland with, very grey suited individuals. And then turned up at Atom to be interviewed by a couple of gentlemen in shorts, T-shirts and trainers. And so the contrast between the two organisations and the interview was just totally different. So in my Atom interview, I got, what if you could be any fruit, what fruit would you be and why? So it was a very, very different feel and a very different organisation. But I was fortunate enough to be offered the role with Atom.
Were you offered the other role as well?
So actually, I wasn't, fortunately, because, and that would have been totally the right choice, actually, because I just don't think it was the right organisation for me at that time. But I was really excited to join Atom, and I really didn't know what I was letting myself in for, if I'm quite honest. I was just really keen to be in a financial services organisation in the Northeast, and I was open to really give anything a go. But I am so pleased that I took that opportunity.
So tell us about the role that you had and what you had to do right at the start, and how you therefore got to being the Chief Operating Officer there.
Yeah, so I joined as head of customer service, and when I first joined, we literally, we didn't have anything. So there was a handful of people with a few laptops. There was no plan. We had no banking license, and I had no team. It was literally just me for operations. So those first 6 months were difficult, I would say, in terms of adjusting to that. How do I make this happen? What do I do? There was so much ambiguity and uncertainty. And because there's only you get involved in everything. From the minutiae detail to the big picture, the breadth of it is just phenomenal. But things started developing and started progressing. So we had to look at technology solutions for the contact center, what platforms we were going to use, setting out, what we were trying to do, what was the ethos, what was going to be, the culture of the contact center. Looking at recruitment, looking at processes, what the app was going to look like for the bank, the whole thing. I mean, it's mind-blowing now when you look back at it, and it was crazy times. But gradually, week after week, something else would happen. There'd be a new process signed off, new people brought in, and it was just so exciting when we got the agents in, got them up and running, got them trained, and then going live was just fantastic.
Amazing.
This is real. This is actually happening, and then. Then over time developed all the operational capability. And it was a couple of years ago now that my boss that I'd always worked for moved across into the technology role, and there was a gap for a chief operating officer. So put my hat in a ring and was successful in gaining that role. So the last 2 years, really developed further and challenging in terms of moving into an executive role. But that's what I love. I love being challenged, and I love doing something different, love growing in the role. But I still love my contact centre because it's my baby right from the start. And very proud of what I've achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. And through these last few years, not just the last 2 years, but in the years leading up to this most recent promotion, did you have much support from a learning and development perspective? where did you get your learning from? You know, did you get it from within? Did you get support and mentoring from within? Did you look externally? How did you know you were doing the right thing?
So that's a good question, Lee. I suppose knowing I was doing the right thing was more around, I suppose, the people I was working with and making sure we brought people in with the right culture and the right focus and the right sort of, I suppose, desire to do the right thing, because that's what we're trying to do at Atom. We're trying to, you know, build a banking proposition that has, you know, is very much built around customers, very transparent and trying to change banking for the better. And so we were all very much on that journey together of doing the right thing and making sure we were doing the right thing. And in all honesty, there wasn't much time, I suppose, to think about learning and developing. It was all very intense and fast paced and just, you know, do the next thing, deliver. I suppose what gave us the external credence that we were doing the right thing and delivering the right thing was things like applying for awards through the CCMA. And, you know, the first European award we won, you know, I was absolutely flabbergasted that we'd won it. And, you know, we'd applied not thinking we'd get anywhere. So that gave us, I suppose, that external recognition. And then things like the reviews that we get from customers on Trustpilot and app stores, the really positive ratings, that gives me the sort of validation that we've did it right and we've done the right thing, and the engagement we have with our people as well.
Yes. And you've done all of this while being a mum to 3.
Yes. Challenging, always challenging. And challenging through different phases of their lives. So my children are relatively grown up now. I've got a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old. But when I look back at my career, I do think sometimes, oh, how on earth did I juggle having those children and, you know, getting to and from work? And especially now it's so different, the flexibility with being able to work from home and 4-day working week. At the time, there wasn't that level of flexibility, particularly when the children were younger. So I do remember, you know, had to do drop-offs, nurseries, before school clubs, after school clubs, and always like trying to juggle diaries and feeling that uncomfortable feeling when you have to excuse yourself from a meeting at 5 o'clock because you have to go and you haven't got a choice because you've got to go and pick your kids up. So, you know, it is a difficult challenge, but I do think that on the whole, employers have really changed and developed their views of parental responsibility, whether that be mothers, fathers, grandparents, etc., that are working. And I think it's so much more supportive than what it ever was, but it still doesn't take away the challenge, particularly for working parents with young children.
And I remember talking with you last year, and you were quite focused on making sure that you were there for, I think it was one of your children as they were going through exams. And I remember you being really focused on that. And was that easy? And I can imagine with Atom Bank, it's the kind of culture that will be, you go do what you need to do, we'll see you when you come back. But that must have been quite hard to, one, as an individual going, do you know what, I've got to park work for a bit. To focus here. That's actually, when you're quite career driven, that's quite a hard decision to make. And then actually be arguably a more of a full-time mum, which is also quite a different thing to being to working.
Yeah. So I suppose what I've learned over the years. So during the run, you know, I was literally not at home for at least 3 or 4 weeks where I just wasn't around. And when I look back on that, I think actually that wasn't really the right decision. And although it felt right at the time. But, you know, I missed my mum's 70th birthday party, which was on a Sunday. It was just the runner kicked off on a Thursday. It was on the Sunday. And I remember the devastation in her voice when I rang her and said, look, Mum, I really can't come. I'm so sorry. And that stayed with me forever. And she's never, ever forgiven me, I have to say.
Oh,
and, you know, it's that type of thing. And your family is so important. And, you know, that it is something about getting the right balance between your family and your work life. And over time, I've learned that. I've learned it probably the hard way. But, you know, it is so important to just recognise the times when you need to put your family first.
And it's so important now, and like you say, you know, the world that we live in now, there's so much more flexibility. But yeah, I would hope that nobody's in a situation where that you just described, where you know that maybe wasn't the right decision. But I guess you make the decisions that you make at the time with the information that you have. Well-known phrase there, but so it's you almost need to move on from that feeling. But I completely get it. And but these days, Atom is known as having the 4-day week. So how are you finding that?
Oh, it's amazing. It is so transformative. And now, because my kids aren't that young, this is my time. This is me time. So it's amazing. So yeah, it is really good from a business perspective. It has been, you know, gone down really, really well. Obviously, engagement's really good, but it has improved productivity. It has improved retention of our teams. It's proven attractive to bring talent into the organisation, and it's improved well-being. So sickness levels have really dropped as well. And it's so our recent engagement survey, you know, the sort of word clouds that come out of it was clearly flexibility, and the 4-day working week was the absolute real positive. And on a personal level, it just gives me so I'm here today on a Friday, which is usually my normal day. But that's because I really wanted to do this, and you know, I really value what the CCMA do. But you know, after this, I am actually going off to visit my mum. So it is, you know, I've started playing tennis, so I've joined a local tennis club, so I do that on a Friday morning, so it gets me out and about and meeting new people. And it's I can decide what I want to do on that Friday. You know, if I need to catch up with a bit of work, I can do that, but it's my decision to do that. But it just makes such a difference in terms of that 3-day weekend, really does.
And so everybody across the business has a Friday off, or is it the contact centre still runs a 4-day week, but it could be any day of the week?
Yeah, so everybody has, you know, works the four days, but it does vary. So the contact centre's open every day of the week, so we just have to you know, work the shifts around that. But everybody's hours were reduced to 34 hours over the week with no change in pay.
Wow. And I know that there'll be people that are listening that will be wanting to know much more about that, and I'm sure at some point we'll have a deeper dive into the 4-day working week. But do you know what? I'm so aware of how long we've been chatting, and I could keep chatting to you for ages. I have to ask you, so far, because I'm sure there's so much more left with you and your career. So far, what has been your greatest achievement?
So I probably struggle to just say one thing, to be honest, and I am aware of time, so I'll keep it brief. But I suppose the few things for me is dealing with the operational impact of the run on Northern Rock was a key moment, I suppose, and you know, demonstrated my resilience, and you know, as I said before, just those feelings of teamship and family that were there at the time. But also building the contact center at Atom from scratch. You know, I sort of didn't go in there thinking, oh, how much, you know, I didn't have a plan of how I was going to do it, and I just had to work it out as I went along and just got on with it. But the results are fantastic, and so proud of that. And then having the privilege to be in the role of COO at Atom, and such a progressive organization, and I've learned so much from being there and the people that I work with. So they're probably my three highlights in terms of my career so far.
So I have to ask you, what do you wish you'd learned sooner?
Oh, I suppose, what did I learn sooner? I suppose just feeling the fear and doing things anyway, and not worrying about things. I suppose I've always been a little bit concerned of, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it in the right way? And actually, you know, just go and do it, and you'll learn from it one way or the other. And there's nothing wrong with failing. Because you can pick yourself up from it, and you'll be a better person and more resilient as a result of it.
Oh, I love that. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with failing. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody knows that everybody makes mistakes. Yeah. It's all fine. So I'm going to ask you 3 relatively quick questions.
Okay.
Apple tech or something else?
Oh, Apple tech. Have to say that at Atom.
Is there a charity you support particularly?
I do. I support a charity called KICRA. So I mentioned earlier my daughter was poorly when she was about 12, and she was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and it was a really difficult time for us and my daughter. And they're a charity that supports young people that are diagnosed with anything like Crohn's or celiac disease or anything like that. And they were fantastic. They organised, you know, family event days, and they gave lots of information and pen pals, you know, for my daughter to engage with her, been through the similar things. So they're amazing. So I am a lifelong supporter of the work that they do.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. That's so lovely. And last question. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Do you know, I have got no desire to write a book whatsoever. So I've got nothing in my head that I would really want to write about. But I do absolutely love reading books, though, that other people write. And that is really my happy place. You know, sitting in front of our wood burning stove with a book and a very large glass of red wine is what I would love to do most of all.
That is so lovely. I'm not sure you'll use a wood-burning stove.
No, not today. It's
maybe not today, but Helen, thank you so much. You've shared some really fabulous advice and inspiration, and I really appreciate you taking some time out, especially on your day off, to come and share your career path to date.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much, Lee.
Thank you so much. And you can watch this all over again, or you can watch our other career talks all on the CCMA website, ccma.org.uk. For now, thank you so much. Goodbye.